Welcome to the morning meeting with Sarah and Jess.
Where the tea is hot, the wine is chilled, and no topic is off limits. Pull up a chair and join us. There is room for all of you here.
We won't limit seating, we'll just build a bigger table. Let's begin today's meeting.
Lisa Radzikowski, also known as Madame Rad, is a French immersion teacher originally from Sydney and now residing in Halifax, Nova Scotia with her husband, Colin, and dog, Stevie. She has been working in elementary schools for 11 years and teaching for 7. She joined TikTok in April of 2020 to fill her time and have a creative outlet at the start of the pandemic.
The Rad Blonde teacher quickly found her niche as a TikTok teacher, building a following of 167,000 people and growing after going viral several times from making relatable content about school, students, and teaching. She loves to make people laugh, think, offer tips, and hopes to remind people to always choose kind. Hi, Jess.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey, ladies.
How are you? Welcome to the morning meeting.
TikTok
Great.
star.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. We're excited to hear all about your experience, both in the virtual world and in the classroom. I'm not sure which one's more challenging, but we're going to talk about all of that right now. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. Excited to go to work tomorrow. Sunday. Got the Sunday scaries.
Honest to God.
Is being a teacher like you have the Sunday scaries every weekend? Like, what does that feel like?
I feel like some days are better. Some Sundays are better than others.
Yeah.
But the Sunday scaries are definitely a thing. And I didn't really realize how many teachers got it until I joined TikTok. And there's so many jokes and posts about the Sunday scary. So I'm like, okay, I'm not alone.
See, that's why social media can be so great, because you realize like some of these inner thoughts you're too scared to say out loud.
You're not alone.
Other people are having them too and saying them out loud. And you're like, okay, I am in the range of normal here. This is good.
Yeah,
Lisa,
absolutely.
what grade do you teach?
I teach grade 4-5 combined French immersion.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tricky age. That's a tricky age. They're they're forces to be reckoned with.
Yes. So they're kind of like pre-teens.
Yeah.
So my grade 4s are pretty different from my grade 5s. I feel like my grade 5s come January and on, the preteen really starts to come out. Next year they go off to middle school.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that transition. And then they're 11 years old. So some of them are starting to go through puberty. So that's happening as well.
There's a lot going on there.
You couldn't pay me enough to work in junior high. I know. I remember being in junior high.
Sometimes I wonder, it's something I would possibly be open to trying, because I really love teaching the age that I'm at. And I have taught grade 6 as well, which would be 11 and 12-year-olds. So I do wonder if I could do a little bit of junior high. I would just like to see what it's like.
I think you could. I think you'd be that cool teacher who would relate with them, but straddle the boundary
especially
of
with being
I'm your teacher.
Viral on TikTok. That would be the coolest thing. That would be super cool.
Grade 4 and 5 must be an interesting split now, Lisa, or maybe it always was, but that I would think of that as more similar age, but you just explained it. It really isn't. If grade 6 now is junior high, that's a bit of a gap there.
Mm-hmm.
There is a gap there. I find they're quite different. I think there's a lot of innocence with my grade 4s, and my grade 5s some of them still have that innocence, but some of them are just different and growing, and then they're combined. They're all together. So the grade 5s are talking about things that are so much different than my grade 4s as well.
Right.
And then the curriculum is completely different as well. So don't even get me started on that. That's hard too sometimes.
So junior high, there's a choice that you can choose French. In junior high, you can pick French as a course, right? You go into immersion. But in elementary, is it that every child has to take it regardless, or where you work, is it a choice to be in French?
So It's funny because in Cape Breton, I've noticed that I was never given an option for French immersion until grade 7, and that's
Right.
called late French immersion. But in Halifax, unless you decide to go with the French school board,
Mhm.
Right.
which we do have up here as well in Halifax, but you can join early French immersion, and it's just a parent's choice to put them in grade primary. So it's full French from primary to grade 2. They don't have any English classes at all.
Wow.
Everything's in French besides
wow.
music and phys ed. And then starting grade 3, they get 1 hour of English a day. And then grade 4 and 5, it's about 30, 40 minutes a day.
Interesting.
And do you teach that 30 and 40 minutes of English, Lisa? Or
I do.
okay.
Yes.
Wow,
So
that's interesting. So these
Mhm.
students, their family don't have to have a lick of French. Like they can go into
No.
French immersion.
That's
So
right.
you're
Without being a
teaching
French family.
French, like you're not just teaching like a French class, like your whole entire class is French. Like
Yeah, she's
That's right.
teaching like math and French. And
Oh, okay.
English
so I
and
was
French.
thinking you were
and-
just like a French, like French class. You were teaching that, but every course is in French.
That's right. So
Oh, okay, interesting.
we have in my school, we have the English program and the French immersion program. So the English program is just like how we probably
Yeah,
all went to
yeah.
school. And then starting in grade 4, 5, and 6, you have core French, which is an hour of French every day. And, it's just, you don't learn too much French, and it's a lot of like songs and games and just trying to get the kids to speak like, the basic things.
Yes.
Whereas immersion is, yes, I teach every subject in French,
wow.
So
just
cool.
like a regular school day. But I
Yeah.
love that. I've taught core French for a short time. I did a maternity leave early on in my career. It is so challenging
Mhm.
because those kids really, some are interested, a
Yeah.
lot aren't.
My friend Hillary does that, and she has the same.
Okay.
Yeah, she's in the same boat to say like a lot aren't interested. They're just there
Mhm.
because their parents make them, and it's challenging. She has like 300 students because she teaches
Yes,
just
that too.
right. So she's got like 300 report cards, and
Mhm.
I could not imagine. She's like going from like class to class, right? Like it's crazy.
Yes. Yeah. It was something.
Teaching
I'm glad
is
I did it.
nice.
And I got my the experience and understood, okay, what does a core French teacher do? But after I only did it for 3 months at the end of the year, came in just at the end, and I was like, okay, I know I do not want to do that.
Right.
It's good to know.
Yes.
I always
So
say
much
one of my
better.
biggest regrets in life is not taking, or if I went back, what I would do differently is take French immersion, because I regret not having more French. Like I just took the French course we all have to take, that 1 hour
Mhm.
French or whatever. And I think it can really benefit you.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
that's what happened to
definitely.
me. Like I just loved core French. Then I was like, I'm going into French immersion. And now I just kept up with my French for all of my schooling into university. And I'm a French immersion teacher. So.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us
And a
more about that,
TikTok
Lisa. So
star.
your family is in French.
No, not at all.
You just liked French in like grade 5 and 6, and you were like, you know what? And then you went to
Mhm.
French immersion, which put you in a different junior high than the community you grew up in.
Yes.
And then you
Yeah.
did French from that point onward.
Yes. I continued on. So Sydney, still wanted to go to Sydney Academy. I didn't go to Riverview to continue on with French immersion.
Right.
But fortunately, at the time, Sydney Academy offered 6 French courses as well as IB French. So I decided to go that route instead.
Right.
And then when I went to university at Dal, I was like, well, I'm definitely going to keep one of my majors in French. So I will still hold on to that, still keep practicing it. So at first I was like, oh, I'm going to major in French and Spanish. And I started studying that at the same time. There's a lot of similarities in French and Spanish. So I found when I was trying to speak Spanish and I didn't know the words, I was adding in French words, and it was really hard to do both at the same time.
Right.
So I just switched to a science degree, and then
No big deal.
Yeah. So I did like one major in science, and I just kept the French. And then I did 1 year at the University of Burgundy in Dijon, which was amazing in France. So I just finished my French major over there and only took French that 1 year. So that really helped my French as well.
I feel like that was yesterday, Lisa, but like it really wasn't. And I feel like that came and went so quickly. Like you going there was so exciting, but what an opportunity for you to have to do that. And then when you went into the education program, you knew you wanted to be a French teacher?
Not necessarily. I really didn't. So, and I didn't even really know that I was going to be a teacher. Once I graduated from Dal, I had my BSc and I was just working at a bar and I was serving and bartending, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. And then I had someone from the Department of Education who was a regular customer. And one day we got to chatting. He's like, "You have a degree. What is it in?" And I told him, he's like, "You speak French? And like, what are you doing?" So I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life yet. And he's like, "Well, I can get you a job in a school as a French language monitor if you're interested."
Wow.
So he set up an interview. I went and I got the job. So I started working in an elementary school in the north end of Halifax, and I loved it. And I was like, I think I want to be a teacher.
Wow.
So after 2 years of doing that full time, I applied to the BEd program and
Awesome.
and started teaching.
You know what? Like, I can't help but think that a colleague of mine, he's amazing, but he would call that a destiny helper. Like, you never know the people that you meet in your life and how they change like the path that you're on, right? Or like the direction that you're going. So this regular customer in that restaurant, of all restaurants in Halifax, he was coming there, you were working there, you had that conversation, he made that connection. And then like, look at the path it led you on, right? He was a destiny helper. Incredible.
Yes, he really was.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I have no regrets. Like, I'm so happy that I did take that path, because even I still had like some hesitation at the time. Like, do I want to go back to school again for another degree? I just finished one. I mean, I took like a 2-year break, but I really wasn't sure, but I was so happy I did. And French is what ultimately got me the job.
Right.
I got a job immediately out of university because French immersion teachers are always needed.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. Okay, so you've been teaching for 7 years now.
That's right.
Wow.
Yes.
And I mean, TikTok isn't 7 years old. So let's connect the two. Yeah. And why don't you tell us about how you started on TikTok? And I have to be honest, I have not caved to TikTok yet. I watch Lisa's, of course, because you can watch TikToks without being on them. So like I have had an account for like 2 seconds and I was like, oh God, I don't know what to do. That's when it first came out. And I don't have one yet, but every day I feel like I'm getting closer and closer. So I think this will be the conversation that pushes me over the edge. But tell us how you started on TikTok and how you've combined teaching and TikTok.
All right. So the story of how I first got on TikTok is a little interesting because my students at the time were really after me to join. So this is in 2020. Madam, you should join TikTok. I think you'd like it. I see other teachers on there. Like, at the time, I did not really know what it was about. I thought it was an app for kids that was silly, that involved dancing. I had no idea. That was my perception of it. And I was like, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I'm allowed to have TikTok as a teacher. I also thought that. And then one day, one of my students is like, "Oh, you're on TikTok." And I was like, "No, I'm not." And they're like, "Well, you're commenting on my things." One of my students at the time was posing as me on TikTok. Yeah.
You're like grade 4?
Yeah. Yeah. She was a grade 5 at the time.
No way.
And I knew I figured out who it was because I feel like, one, teachers can figure out a lot of things. Adults can figure out a lot of things. And I talked to the kids. I looked at the account. I saw who they were friends with, I went through all these steps. So I had to bring it to my principal's attention that this was happening because they were commenting and the kids were thinking it was me. And I was like, all this is going to take is someone to say,
"Oh, that's scary."
Right. It was very scary. I was like, what if they say something that's inappropriate?
Oh my God.
It was just awful. So we had a discussion with my class, with the principal, just basically saying like, we can find this out. We will contact your parents. We're going to give you I don't know, the end of the day or the end of the week, this account needs to be gone. Sure enough, it was. And I love that student dearly. So I was like, I am not going to call them out or embarrass them. Like, I don't think it was malicious.
Right.
So anyway, that happened. And then a little bit of time passed and now we're in lockdown.
Yeah.
And I was bored. And all of my students were on TikTok. And I was like, I'm going to join TikTok kind of just to see what it's like and maybe a way to like connect with my students and see how they're coping and how they're doing with all of this. So I joined. I didn't make a video for a few weeks. And then randomly I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Like, whatever. So weird to put yourself out there as well.
Yes, totally.
So the first TikTok I made, of course, was it was about a joke about Tiger King, because that was the hype of the beginning of April 2020. Tiger King and teaching online, and I combined the two, making a joke about that. And then I just consistently started posting almost every day, just coming up with different things. My husband was always laughing at me like, what do you think of this? I'm like dressing in different things and running around the house. Because we were stuck in the house as well, right? We just go for walks around our neighborhood, really. That's all we were allowed to do at that point.
Yeah.
And I just really liked it. And then I went viral a few times, and I feel like
so
that.
Cool.
What's your first video that went viral? Do you remember?
Okay, so it's interesting because when people say viral, I have friends on TikTok who think like viral is something that's like 10 or 20, 30,000 views.
Right.
But to me, when something goes viral, it's like 500,000 to 1 million. Like I think that's viral. So my first video to hit 1 million, I think it went over 1 million.
Holy
maybe
smokes.
Like I've had videos go anywhere between 1 million and 7.5 million, probably.
7.5 million people.
Yes. Like
holy snipes.
I've had, I think about 6 to 8 videos that got in between there.
Wow.
So my first video that I think I got a lot of followers from it, and it went over 1 million, was about masks. And it was, if masks are required in the upcoming school year, this is what it could be like.
Yeah.
And I just made a bunch of jokes about little kids wearing masks, and people thought it was hilarious. And people couldn't imagine that they would ever
imagine.
Take us to school.
Right. Isn't that
Lisa,
funny to look back on?
If for teachers listening that are like, I want to go on this account right now and check it out, is it a mix of like funny jokes for teachers and, some students that are on there, but is it also like helpful tips? Do you share, tips and tricks that help you in the teaching world? Or what can people expect from your account when they check out your page?
Yes. So I have like lots of humor, lots of jokes. That's like my main thing. But I do have some tips and just share some things that I've learned and discovered on the way. And I do, because I have a master's in technology integration as well. And I really want to add some more tips about what I've learned in my master's, because I have so many cool tools, and I'm like, I need to make that a series.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of videos on that. And I do a lot of book recommendations for like children's books and things that I like for different like themes. I'm really big on like diverse children's literature, as well as I'm huge into like feminism, like Women's History Month. I always do like a little series of my favorite books for that as well. Yeah, it's kind of like a little bit of everything. And sometimes when I stray a little bit, I'll talk about my personal life or add in when I got my puppy.
I love that.
Never does as well though.
Oh,
No,
really?
of course not.
Really?
No,
that's
people
interesting.
are really just there for the teacher content.
Right. And does it come easily to you? Because I think that's one of the biggest things. Like when you think about like going viral or, all these like Instagram sensation and TikTok sensations, to look at the videos, it looks like so easy. Like, oh my God, like all it would take is like one, good video. but it's
Mhm.
not easy at all. Like when you actually sit down, like personally, I have a really hard time with content creation. Like it doesn't come natural to me. I really do think you have to have a creative mind. Do you feel like it just comes natural to you that you can just like think up an idea and like run with it? Or do you have to search the web for ideas, or kind of talk us through that process of, creating a video?
That's a great question, because I feel like I've always felt like I was a creative person. And when we were on lockdown, it was like a creative outlet to me, because I'm so
Mhm.
used to being in my classroom and creating these lessons
Right.
and different things to engage my students. So I feel like when it comes to content creation, it's basically like peaks and valleys.
Mm,
So I will go through phases where I will be having like a really great week, and all these ideas are basically just come to me based on things that have happened to me in my classroom. Like I think of ideas to match trending sounds.
mm,
Right.
Trending sounds is a big one, because
yeah.
when you're creating content based on these trending sounds, TikTok is going to push
Right.
your
Ah,
content
That's
out,
right.
right.
because more people are using them. That's what's popular right now. So I will just show you right now. When I get these ideas, I have a note, like a note section on my phone. So I am constantly just writing down. I don't know if you can see this, but if you
Oh,
can,
cool.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
and this will go, these are just
Oh.
ideas and ideas that come to me. And
Wow.
they're
Oh my
like
God.
Oh
little,
my God,
yeah,
So for
Lisa.
like scripts
we need to
that
take a
I
video
wrote.
of this
Please do
because
that again. That is crazy.
And they come to me whenever I've had friends, I'm sitting at a table with friends on a Friday, Saturday
Right.
night, having some drinks. They're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like,
Look at
"Oh,
that.
I just got an idea." So and I have to write them down because I will not remember.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Do you feel like you're viewing the world around you now through content
Ooh.
creation in a way? Like, like that's in your brain. Your brain is kind of working that way. So now when you're like in certain sociocultural like environments, are you like, oh yeah, this is a TikTok in the making. Like this is a video,
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I am like that. I do think like that now.
it's
So
interesting that you
interesting.
say like you'll try and think of things for trending audio, because I would think that would be harder where you have to have a video based on a certain audio. Because I would be like, okay, that like an idea that I or someone else might come up with, I feel like it's like, oh, it doesn't match the trending. Like I feel like that would be so much harder. But do you find that easier? Like if you have something to work off of?
Kind of
Yes,
inspires it, maybe.
Oh, that is so
exactly.
interesting.
I feel
That
like
is so
it's
interesting.
so I feel like I have so many ideas that I can match them to trending
Okay.
audio. Or they'll be like, I find something that I like or that's trending, and I save it. And I think, well, over the span of a few days, like,
Yeah.
what would match this? Like, how can I relate this to my classroom? How can I relate this to teaching my students?
Right.
But I also have to always make sure that their privacy is respected.
Mhm.
Right.
I'm not saying too much.
Right.
I would never want to embarrass my students, or some of them say like, was that about me or anything
Right.
like that?
Right. Very thoughtful.
But I have had things where like funny things have happened, and I will ask, because my students are
Oh.
very aware
Right.
that I have TikTok. I tried to hide it as long as I could. But then once you go viral,
Right.
you can't really hide it.
Right.
So many people have found me. And that was the other thing. Once I started getting like all of these followers, I was like, okay, I need to sit down with my principal and my vice principal and explain what I'm doing before someone else says something.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
and I wanted their professional opinion. Do you think what I'm doing is okay? Is this appropriate for me as a teacher? I'm filming in my classroom,
Mm.
always during my own personal time.
Right.
Some nights I'm there till 5 or 6 o'clock
Right.
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 filming, because I have to get my other work done first.
Right.
So, but I am filming at my place of work, even though it's not
Right.
during my
Yes.
contractual
Right.
hours.
Right.
You know,
That ethical component. Yeah.
Exactly. But I've been very lucky. My admin loves it. My VP follows me.
That's amazing.
My VP last year made a TikTok with me and was very excited to do
that's
it.
awesome.
So extremely supportive. My principal, TikTok's not his thing, but all his 3 children follow me.
Yeah.
His wife follows me. They said, like, I think this is great.
Yeah.
That's good.
They make jokes about it. They make fun of me about it, but
Yeah.
in a nice, loving way.
Yeah. I think that's interesting, Lisa. I wonder if the generation we fall in, because I think we straddle the line of we grew up with it at a certain point in our lives, like we're kind of past like the first transformative part of our life, right? Like we didn't really get social media, or it wasn't really a thing until we were probably in our 20s, would we say, or social media, how we know it now.
Yeah.
So to us, we were always told like, this is not professional, and this is not, and this is like separate from, and this is not how you conduct yourself. And it was like a very kind of scary, more social thing. But now in 2022, I mean, even in the late 20 teens, it is very much like professionals use social media to their benefit. Like every business has a social media, like it has changed. The landscape of social media is different, right? And the kids you're teaching, that's just their norm. Like you learn to communicate through these different communication channels. So this is like a regular channel for them, where we remember a time where it didn't exist and now it does. So we're like, like, is this right? So it's interesting you had that feeling of like, is this professional and should I be doing this? And is this ethical, right? Do you think there was a little bit of that there? Like,
oh, absolutely. And there still is with almost every video that I post. In the back of my head,
right,
I have this constant worry about, how will this be viewed? Could this offend somebody? So
yeah, you have to have that lens.
Yes, always. Yeah. And the fact that I've watched so many TikTok teachers I guess they call it get doxxed. So when somebody posts your full name and your school that you work at and tell people to like contact your admin, and so many teachers have gotten in trouble. It's mostly in the States,
right?
But I would say a dozen kind of mutual teacher friends on there who have posted like, I can no longer post anything about teaching. I have been reprimanded by my employer. This is not okay. Yeah, there's been a lot of teachers in New York where they have just been told, like, you need to stop posting or we will fire you, essentially.
Yeah.
It's really funny because there's a really big, like, friends only thing that a lot of teachers post. So if friends only is when you follow someone and they follow you back.
Okay.
So there's a lot of teachers on there who post funny things you kind of wish you could say, or maybe something with them saying a curse word or something.
Right.
Because you have to keep your page extremely clean as a teacher.
Right.
And that's another thing that I kind of have issues with as well, because I feel like as a teacher, you're kind of held to a different standard.
Right.
And I think we're much more relaxed in Canada, or at least the schools I'm familiar with in Nova Scotia, where dress code isn't a huge issue.
Right.
But there are teachers, especially in the States, who aren't allowed to wear sneakers or jeans, have to cover their tattoos, no facial piercings. Very, very strict depending on where what district they teach in. It's very different there.
Yeah.
I feel lucky to be in Canada and not have to.
Has being so popular on TikTok helped you in terms of like resources you were able to attain? Like, have you been sent things? You see like people getting like fan mail and all these things.
Yeah.
Like, have you been able to monetize TikTok to your benefit?
I have been able to monetize it. Not a huge income, but definitely some income on the side. I have worked with, I'll just name some of the brands that I've worked with because I'm sure you've heard of some of these. So when you are partnering with a brand, really big companies, I have to sign an NDA with.
Okay.
So some of these companies, I won't be able to like talk about them any further or answer any questions about them.
Okay.
But McDonald's Canada, Cricket, a lot of educational apps, which I love. So Bottle Learning, Tracked, 99 Math, they're great, and they're great for parents and teachers as well, and they're free to use. So they're great to check out if you have kids. And Source Books and lots more.
Cool.
Wow.
But I've made just like some monthly pocket change on the side. I've also made from like one video more than I make in 2 weeks of teaching. So
What?
yeah. So
Through
it
advertising
really
or through TikTok? Like, how does that work? Like through a company wanting to work with you from that video?
that's right.
Okay.
So unfortunately, there is no creator fund in Canada,
Right. Right.
which makes me a little sad because those videos where I have millions of views or even hundreds of thousands of views, I would make pretty good money from that.
Right.
I know teachers in the States who get regular views who it's changed their lives.
Wow,
They
yeah.
have been able to buy a car, or
Oh my god.
I had another teacher post that TikTok pays for all of her childcare just because of her
Wow.
views. So
That's
I can
amazing.
only make money with partnerships in
Right.
Canada,
Right.
which is okay. I am really fussy though as well about who I will work with.
Yeah. Good for
I-
you.
You should be.
Yes, like I'm not going to work with just anyone for money. I want to like
No.
believe in the brand.
Yep.
But I did learn through TikTok. At first, it's very exciting when you're starting out. Oh, you want to send me this and I'll post about it? Of
Yeah.
course I will. You know, you're just excited. You're getting things sent to you.
Yeah.
And then the more I watched some TikToks about it, and I was like, that's free advertising for them.
Yes.
Like that's not. So basically, somebody framed it up like, if someone's just sending you a product and you're posting about it, you're not really getting paid
Right.
to do this work. So I've kind of been pretty strict. I've had lots of people reach out like, we would love to work with you. So now I just send them my media kit that I've created that breaks down all of my numbers, my following, and where they're located, and with my pricing.
Good for you.
And that's been a great help as well.
That
So
is
people-
So
amazing.
cool.
Yeah,
I'm
it
still
works really
waiting.
well.
I'm still waiting to get cool DMs about like working with brands other than like, can I be your sugar daddy? Because like that's all I get right now. And I'm like, every time I get a
Yeah.
DM, I'm like, is this gonna be it?
Yeah.
And
that
then
is
it never
so
is.
funny.
And I'm like, oh,
That is so funny. Did
Uh,
you
it's
gotta
think
give.
did you think about that, Lisa, when you started on TikTok? Like did you think that a short time later you would be signing deal partnerships with McDonald's Canada?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Wow.
I know, I really didn't. At first I was like, oh, well, wouldn't it be like nice? Like once things picked up a little bit, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I could have like 10,000 followers? That would be crazy.
Yeah.
And now it's like 160 some thousand. I'm like, whoa,
So cool.
how did that happen? Sometimes it's a
Yes.
little scary
There's-
though.
That was my next
Yeah.
question is what are the feelings surrounding all this? Like the following you received and knowing there's this many people out there following you and consuming your content. Like how
And
does
I
that
feel
feel?
like TikTok people are like vicious.
Yes, exactly. So with a large following, and I think I have like a mid-range following.
Right.
Yeah.
I think at first I thought it was a lot when
Right.
I was thinking of what it could be, and now where it is, and I'm like, okay, it's not that many people, but it is still significant.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Like if you put over 100,000 people into a room
Yeah,
or
yeah.
into a field, you would be like, oh, okay.
Yes. That's a yes, exactly.
So, but with that, yeah, comes a lot of trolls. I have, for the most part, my content is very positive and fun. And I try not to complain too much or point out maybe some of the things that I don't love about teaching and some of the
Right.
things that are very broken in our education system. Because when you bring those things up, people get upset.
It opens the floor for debate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I have definitely had trolls. With any viral video, you're going to get negative comments. That's the only thing. You're getting like this dopamine with all your notifications.
Right. Right.
But then comes mean people. And sometimes it's children who, it's really silly. So I have learned not to read or pay too much attention to these comments.
Good.
The block button is my friend. If someone says something that's offensive or inappropriate, I used to like kind of take it to heart or think about it.
Yeah.
I
It'd
do
be hard
do
not
that.
to. Yeah.
Yes.
Now
You have to
you're
train yourself,
you are
though,
the
right?
weakest link. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yes,
But you
exactly.
have to train yourself to do that, I assume.
Yes. Yeah.
And teenagers are terrifying.
Yeah.
They are.
And I
They
imagine
are.
there's probably a feeling of wanting to like respond and correct it, or like respond and
Yes.
argue with them, or like
Absolutely.
not just let
be
it go.
and to
You
just
want
be
to
like be a
prove them
kind
wrong.
human.
Yeah.
Like you
Yes.
want to just be like, be
What
nice.
is wrong
There's
with
a better
you?
way to do this.
Yes.
And I
actually
have
s-
actually tried that, and I do not do that anymore.
No. Well, you're
I was
still
watching-
expending your energy on it, right? Like
Yes.
that's
Right.
I
I was
Sorry,
watching
Jess.
a live video on TikTok earlier today, and it was just this guy explaining how like people were commenting being trolls in the video, and he was just saying how like people have the right to speak their mind. Like you have the right to speak your mind. But like mature adults have like the intellectual ability to think the thought and then not say it.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like there's a
Not
difference.
feel the
Like,
need to
yes,
type it
you have
out.
you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
think the thought, but then just keep it in there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just have like that, like understanding and maturity to like not say it.
Filter.
Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be that's hard. It's not
There's
hard.
always such a level of hypocrisy in the comment section on anything, right? Like people
Mhm.
commenting, telling someone like that they're wrong or the way it is, they're using all the same
So matter of
language to
fact,
prove
too.
their argument. Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
just like, it's a difference of opinion. Let's just leave it at that. And also I call them keyboard warriors. Like you
Mhm.
just
Yes.
don't need to take out whatever's hurting you through your keyboard on another human being. Like just don't do it. Go to therapy instead
There
or
has to
whatever
be
you need
another
to
way.
do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the thing I always say is like, I think it's like, thank God that we all think differently. I mean, this is what makes the world go round. If we all felt the same way, like how terrifying would that be? Like we wouldn't have a democracy. Like,
Yeah.
like it wouldn't exist. So we all have to think differently. And I think it's amazing that we do, but like, we also have to remember that like it's human. It's like actual humans and real people. Like, even if you have 1 million followers, or if you're like, I don't know, like, I don't even want to use examples to be made fun of, but like, they're still a person.
Yeah.
They're
Mhm.
still an actual human and a real
Yeah.
person. And like, I don't
Well, we
know,
use the
like,
example of
right.
50 Cent, Jess, like in our
Yeah.
first episode or
Yes.
episode is like, I get it after the Super Bowl, but like, he's still a human who's probably going to
Mhm.
read all this stuff. Like,
And I
Mhm.
just think about it like
nice.
for kids. I was in I can't say too much, but I was in a meeting. I don't even know. I'm not even going to say it. I'll just use another example. I think about kids and how like they're on their phones 24/7. And like, so you're just like in bed, lying down, about to go to bed. And then you post a pic, like a selfie. And then a random guy in your class comments a really nasty comment. Like, how are you going to sleep?
Mhm.
How are you going to
Absolutely.
sleep? And then how are you going to function the next day at school? Like, I worry about kids so freaking much with social media. Like, I can't even, like, it makes me sick. It makes me
I
do as well.
sick to my stomach.
Mhm.
Because
I
you
say-
can't escape it. You can't escape. It's constant. You get bullied
Yeah.
at school, and then you go home and you get bullied at home and before bed. And then like wake up through the night, check your phone, you're bullied. Like the kids can't escape it. And I just think it's very scary.
I think I'm so thankful that we didn't have social media when we were in high school or junior high. Like I know we had whatever, MIRC or chat, whatever, but like, thank
Even that
God
was too much.
we didn't have social media.
I mean, junior high
I
was hard
agree.
enough as it was without that. I
Yes.
mean, like,
Yeah. Do you
Oh,
notice that in your students, Lisa? Like, do you think you see a different generation of students sitting in front of you now when it comes to social media and the way they communicate?
Absolutely. And it makes me a little bit fearful for
Yeah.
the future
Mhm.
and having children of my own and the things that they will face and the things that they will be exposed to.
Mm,
So, especially since TikTok has come to be one of the most popular apps, there's a few things that I have an issue with. One is that you need to be 13 years old to join.
mhm.
And my students are not, but so many of them. I would say 60% or more of my class is on TikTok. And I just don't know if it's appropriate for them.
Right.
No.
So how are they on there? Because it's a click of a button that says,
You just
I
lie.
agree, I'm
Exactly.
13. Click the button.
Yes.
It's like the lie we
Yes.
all tell every day when we say, I have read these terms and conditions. Yes, I have.
Exactly.
And none
That
of
is
us have,
right.
ever have.
Yes. So they're just changing the year they were born.
Yeah,
And I
right.
understand. I think it's a parent's choice that if they want to give their child permission to be on it. And I think there's also a pressure too. All my friends are on it, Mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Come on,
is. It
Dad. Let
is.
me be on it.
Or you're being
like,
bullied because you're the only one that's not on TikTok.
yeah,
Well,
and you
you're
don't understand
being
all the
made fun of.
jokes.
Exactly. You're
Yes.
othered because you're not in the inside speech community of the language. Like, you don't know what's happening.
Exactly. And there's so many things that they say and do because of social media.
right.
But I have noticed the children in front of me these past 2 years seem to have grown up much quicker
Interesting.
than the students that I taught at the beginning of my career. I think they are exposed to so much more. They seem to know about things that
Mhm.
is shocking sometimes.
Well,
Mhm.
because you can
Um,
search anything on TikTok. Like I could
Exactly.
search literally anything I want to know and a million videos will come up about it. So it's not even like if you're on their For You page and you're just like searching, videos will come up and like the more videos you watch that you're interested in, they'll show more of those videos. But then
Mhm.
oftentimes random stuff will pop up or like I just said, you can search anything.
Yes. Anything.
So it's terrifying what kids are being exposed to.
It is.
And like
And
the
I'm
other
not
thing is you
sure.
can't be on top of your like I've seen a lot of parents that I have on my social media post their children's TikTok videos and their children are like 5.
Mhm.
So it's a lot. It's a
It
lot.
is. Yeah, I think there's a fine line. I'm not really sure how I even feel about like young children like posting themselves
Mhm.
online with a TikTok account either. Again, I think it's a personal choice, and it's under the discretion of a parent, but it just makes me a little bit worried because you don't know who's watching your child's videos, especially if the account is public. I think if it's private, that's one thing. But sometimes there's so many students at my school who are just in elementary school and they all have public accounts.
And I think too, Lisa, that like a lot of the videos that these little babies, I call them, like if you're 5, you're a baby to
Mhm.
me, like compared to other kids. But like the videos are cute. The dancing, the little
Yeah.
like it's really sweet and whatever. But then what else are they doing? Like that's the thing. Like I think parents are probably seeing like one side of like, look at this cute video, but then how many other videos did they scroll through before they got to that trending one? I don't know.
Yeah, I think
Exactly.
we talk about this in my issues of media studies class, and we actually just had this conversation. My students brought it up on their own after they did a group presentation in my interpersonal communication class. But a student had asked, who's responsible? So if the only gatekeeping function is clicking a box to say you're of age to use the app, and anyone can do that, that covers the app's butt. Like if something happens, right? Like, well, you
Yes.
lied. We had this safeguard in place, but is that enough? Like, is it their ethical
No.
responsibility or is it the family on the other side? And then there's an interesting, not argument, but an interesting point to be made about like communicative tools and behavior and the generation that we're in and being able to communicate with your like socially with your peers and etc. But I think there's a fine line between having the mature brain and like growth to be able to understand like consequences and how to use it ethically and responsibly And I always say, like, we see this pendulum swing in the last, like, we're living right in a time where advancement and information, like, it's never been more rapid and things have never been growing as fast paced, and it's hard to keep up with. So I say, like, the students using these apps, stereotypically speaking, probably know more than the teachers teaching them. And I say teachers meaning like the adults in their lives, not actual classroom teachers. Like, Lisa, I think you're an exception when it comes to the teacher realm. Maybe I'm wrong, but in knowing so much, right? So we can teach them ethically how to use them. But for so long, it's been like the students knowing more than the parents or the adults. So it's them using it with no real education on how to ethically use it. And I think eventually we'll see that pendulum swing back to kind of even out a little bit and being able to use it and know how to use it appropriately. But I don't think we're there yet. So it is a little scary to have so much access and ability to access these things. Yeah. But it's
like,
also
100% is.
Yeah, but it's also like these are the tools that kids are using to socialize with their peers. So like, how do we teach them how to use it?
There needs to be healthy boundaries in place.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that like the problem that I see just in my line of work and just generally speaking on social media is parents want to be best friends with their children. But here's the thing, and this is only my opinion and people can comment on it and I will gladly have a conversation about it. Parenting is really friggin' hard and it sucks a lot of the time for that reason. We have to parent our children. We can't be there. We have to parent first and be their friend second, because it is like, yeah, it sucks, I'm sure. And I'm sure I'm going to have these conversations when I'm older with like, well, mom, like I'm a loser because this, or I'm a whatever. But like, I know what you were saying. So like, there is a fine line of like peer pressure and like all of these things, but like, we have to be the gatekeepers and we have to put boundaries in place, and it's okay for our kids not to like them, and too bad about that. Like, I don't know. It terrifies me what kids are being exposed to.
It's scary. It's scary. Their access to information to other people's lives. And not only that, it's their access to the performative life. So I see it in my classroom now, and these are adults I'm teaching, and they're saying like, they're not realizing like, oh, right, that is their performative life. Like,
right.
That life looks so great. And that girl looks so
understand.
Well, exactly. We forget that too as users, right? Because we're all using it, but we forget sometimes that. So that's what I mean about the mature brain. Like if your brain can't sometimes sit down and separate, oh, wait, this is like their highlight reel of their lives. And they are having struggles and going through challenges just like me. And I'm not seeing that. If you can't rationally do that yet, then it's a dangerous place to be, because you're just seeing the extra performative piece all of the time and thinking that's like your range of normal, right? So that's what you're comparing your life to. Comparison. And
then I was also thinking like,
scary.
Why isn't there, maybe there is, and I'm just not in the know about it, but why is it, there should be like at this point, mandatory like social media 101 in school, like being taught to these students. Because like I had a situation where a student was literally like, this person was just constantly making comments. It's like, you need to block them. Like you need to know how to use the app too. Like you need to know how to like get rid of these things and how to manage these things. Like, why aren't we talking about, maybe they are talking about it in the classroom and I'm just not aware, but like, it should almost be like, I don't know if it's a guidance thing or like a Schools Plus thing or what, but like someone should be going into the classroom and talking about social media. Here's what it is. Here's how to manage it. Here's what to do if you're being bullied. I'm sure there is these conversations, but I don't know. I just feel like there's just so much to know. And yeah, I think there's a big gap there.
I completely agree. So the good news is technology is now a class and that we have an integrated technology curriculum, which is great. And the very first outcome on that is digital citizenship.
Yes.
So that is teaching students how to safely navigate the internet and social media and conduct themselves on it.
Just to interrupt for 1 second, Lisa, sorry, is for just for compare, like for context here. So university students right now, if they take a media course, and these students are probably 10 years older than yours, let's say, give or take, if they take one of the media courses that we offer, for example, are learning like a little bit about digital citizenship. And from my experience, it's the first time they're hearing about it. So for
Right.
context, because they've been
Yes.
using it their whole lives, like since they were
Mhm.
5. But this
And-
is the first time they're hearing about it,
And
right?
is this regarding like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or is this just how to use your Chromebook?
It's really everything, like
Yeah.
how to navigate the internet safely. However, I will say I was told this year that they are rewriting this technology curriculum
Can't
and it's
keep
in the
up.
process right now. And 2, with things like this, it's ultimately the teacher chooses how to teach this outcome. So for someone like me who loves social media and knows how to use it and understand what TikTok is like, I have no problem teaching that and
Right.
talking about it. And I can develop lessons and bring that into my classroom. And I can I understand exactly how it works and what they need to be careful of and how they should conduct themselves. But when I think about some of my colleagues who have difficulty logging on to their Google Drive system and sending an
Mhm.
email or making a copy of a document,
Mm-hmm.
they like that's where they are with
Yep.
using the internet and
Yeah,
platforms.
there's a gap there for sure.
There's a huge gap.
That's what I'm
And-
talking about. You're helping swing the pendulum back.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
That's a
Yeah.
good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hold it so like I think it's extremely important. So in September, before my students even get their Chromebooks, I do a full lesson and several lessons, and we talk about it and how to safely use it and their email, and it continues on for the rest of the year, these lessons, because things do come up with social media as well.
Yeah.
But I know, sadly, some of my colleagues aren't touching that with a 10-foot pole.
Right.
Just
So it's
because they're
not
not
being
educated
taught.
in it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's
it's
no
overwhelming.
PD for teachers. Like
No,
that's
yes.
one of the unfortunate things. Like
Yeah.
when a new curriculum is rolled out, it's like, here you go. You're
Mhm.
going to figure out how to do this. And then you have teachers who are like, hold on, I do not understand how to teach this. And I don't understand how to even navigate these subjects. And it's just like, well, too bad you're going to figure it out. Like
That's
there used
mind blowing to me.
PD. There is not enough PD. So early in my career, there was, they would roll out a new math idea and I would get invited. I would get a substitute for the day and I get invited to the board or the regional center, whatever it's called now. And I would, can't keep up with that either.
I know.
And I would learn about how to effectively teach this curriculum.
Right.
And now there's
What a
no
concept.
substitutes. We're in a sub shortage.
Right.
So
So
Right.
they can't be pulling teachers for
Right.
PD. I mean,
Right.
COVID had, I think during COVID, people weren't getting pulled either for things, but this began before COVID. Like teachers joke, oh, like remember when we used to get training and PD on these new
Right.
things that they roll out? And it was just like, here you go. You're going to figure this out on your own time, your evenings and your weekends. You're going to read this new thing and you're going to figure it out because we're not going to give you any time during your workday. So good luck.
It's putting the cart before the horse. Like if you're rolling out a new curriculum, there should be a workshop. And if you can't pull teachers from the classroom, if you have to respond to the environment or the current time and space we're in, why not send out do they do like video PDs at all? Like, can you do like online versions of this? Or I don't know what that looks like.
You
but-
can.
Okay.
So sometimes that is offered, but then you have to you are giving up your evenings and weekends, like
Right.
your unpaid time
Right.
to do
Yeah.
this. And I've
Yeah.
definitely done some of those things. I've spent entire weekends doing PD 9 to 5.
Right.
If I find it like beneficial, I will do that.
But you're choosing to do that.
It's
Not all
my
teachers are.
choice.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There are so many people who will say no, or I just work my contract hours. I'm only working what you're paying me for. I am not going to do the extras. And
Yeah.
that's another thing. I've actually talked about this on TikTok and just got some comments being like, well, you're part of the problem. because you're putting in the extra work.
Mm.
You're spending your own money on your classroom. So
Mhm.
now you are setting the bar that teachers will just do this anyway. Teachers will just use their personal time to do this.
But the thing
PD.
is like everybody does that with any job, not just teaching.
Yes.
Like if you love your job, you put more into it. Like
Yes,
that's just a natural thing, whether you're a
absolutely.
teacher or you're a, like
Yeah.
so frustrating that people would say that. Like it's just
What's your response to that, Lisa? Like, have you thought about it from that perspective before?
I have thought about it, and I feel like I'm really, as Jess said, like people who are passionate in their jobs do put in the extra time.
Yeah.
They do put in the evening work. And I feel like that's where I'm at. Like, I just love my job, and I like to do the extras because I see when you put the extra in, I see the magic that happens, and I see like how much my students appreciate it. And I like being on committees, and I like doing things like that for my school in general, my community.
Community building. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But then I do understand that, like, if people are always putting their time, their own personal time and money into their job, then it kind of creates this idea that, like, well, I'll do it anyway.
It's
Teachers
not
will
being
just do
responded to it.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also, I think though, that leads to burnout, right? Eventually, like, is that sustainable over the course of your 25-year career? Like, there has to be some sort of response to that. You, I think, have found an interesting way, and I think maybe other teachers do this too, but I didn't know about it until I learned it from you. So outside of your partnership deals and like monetary gains from TikTok, you've also been able to connect with a teacher community or educational community, and you have an Amazon shop, and people may send you things, right? Like, can you talk a little bit about that? Because it is on you to, which I didn't really realize either, fill your classroom with your extra things and resources, and that's your money and your time being spent on that. So tell us a little bit about your experience with that.
Sure. Yeah. So I think on average, I spend, and most teachers spend, anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a year on their classroom and on their students. And that just comes, right out of my own pocket. So I created an Amazon wish list. There was like a movement on social media a few years ago, where I was called a clear the list movement. And a lot of different celebrities got involved, and they started posting teachers' wish lists for their classrooms. And I posted mine on TikTok. It's in the link in my bio. And I started getting things for my classroom.
Wow.
And it's really, it's basic things. Like, I am asking for like some more diverse books for my students, or whiteboard markers.
Wow.
Or
do they not provide you with whiteboard markers? Like, are you kidding me?
No.
There's no Walmart in your school?
I wish.
Like,
and maybe some schools are
insane to me.
different, but no.
But obviously, if there's a movement called Clear the List, some schools aren't different. Like, this is a global, issue that's happening.
It is a global issue.
I'm just looking at the list now.
It's a systemic, like, it's structural, this issue.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, exactly. And that's the thing. And that's the other thing. Like, I feel like if teaching wasn't a female dominated profession, that we would have more respect. I think we would have higher pay. And I don't think we would have to pay so much for our supplies and our classroom libraries. Like, you need to really make sure students love to read. But here are these books that are 20 years old.
Yeah.
So, like, or here are these books with only white characters, and my very diverse students cannot see themselves in the book. Like,
representation matters. Yeah, exactly. You're right. That is like the equivalent of the underpaid and unrecognized, like, caretaker work, right? Like, it's like very stark example of that. It's so interesting. Do you think the students in your classroom are more tech savvy than ever before? We may have already answered this, but, like, do you think they are communicating through tools now?
Yes, for the most part. I feel like some students are, very tech savvy. And then I definitely have other students who just aren't there yet.
Mm.
And
Which
I
is
think
interesting because this is the way of life now, right?
it
You know,
is.
if they don't get it, how are
Yes.
they going to keep up, right? Because like you said, everyone has a Chromebook now.
They do. Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah.
So I think it's mixed. I think it depends on their previous teachers.
Mhm.
I think it depends on what they're exposed to at home. Because I have like half of my class has their own iPhone or iPod Touch. And the other half, like they do not have that at all.
Mm.
So I think it just really depends. But I would say they are much more tech savvy. I think for some of the older teachers at my school who aren't tech savvy, rely on their students a lot to figure things out and set things up. There's no doubt about that. And even sometimes, like I've had students even help me with things. Like I think I'm very tech savvy, and there are sometimes just look at this trick, madame. Like they have this figured out. I'm like, how did you do that? And I also find it's really interesting because on their little Chromebooks, they all have like they're all completely customized.
Oh.
And I'm like, those are things that I never did on my computer.
Right.
I almost think
do.
that's like evolutionary. Like that's evolution, I think. Like they are just learning. We use the same stuff, but we remember a time like BT, like before technology, where like they are just brought up with it.
Yeah.
Like their communication, their communicative use of them is so different. So that's their like nonverbal communication of like, it's somehow probably connected to their identity in some way, like their customized screens or their colors or their whatever, right?
Absolutely.
It's
Yes.
so
Even like their
interesting.
little cursor, like their mouse and their cursor is.
It's not an arrow?
Yeah.
Oh, it's all so different. Like, and I'm like, how did you do that? You know,
Right.
like genuinely like, oh, you just click here and here, madame. Like you just do this. Here, let me do this for you. I made a TikTok about rating my students' Chromebook backgrounds because they all had such unique ones. Like mine is
so
just,
cool.
I've never changed mine. It's just the standard thing it came with. It's not something I would think about. But they change theirs regularly.
Yeah.
And it's very like, that's the thing to do.
I think you just exposed like a major shift or gap in between like the generational use of it, because for us, these are very much still like tools that we use to help us be more productive or get something done or et cetera. Where for them, it's like an extension of themselves, right?
Yeah.
It's like an extension of their being. It's different.
And
So
also I think like how they pick up some of these tools and how to use them can be very quick in comparison to me or some of my colleagues.
Right.
So just for example, we did a research project on the Winter Olympics. And then I said, okay, you're going to create a Canva account. You're going to make an infographic and it's going to look so cool. And people are going to be impressed with this, blah, blah, blah.
Awesome.
And, you know, some of my students just did the basic, like just a fairly basic Canva thing. Once I gave them a little mini lesson on, okay, this is how you navigate it. This is how you use it. There's ones that are pre-made and you can just fill in information. You can change stuff. But then I had other students go way above and beyond and we're creating like these animated videos with the infographics and I like submitting them to me. And I'm like, whoa.
Wow.
It's kind of amazing how quickly it can just come to them.
Yeah, it's natural.
It is natural.
It's that creative brain, right? Yeah, like
Yes.
you were saying with you. And it's so interesting. Like this conversation has been so fun and interesting because like how you've taken a quarantine and you were just bored and you were just looking
Creative
for a
outlet
turned out to be this really neat platform of like, you know, you've built relationships and friendships through, and you have resources for your students and you're able to get items for your classroom. I mean, it's so interesting to look at where it started and where it's gone. And we talked, I talked negatively a lot about social media and how scary I think it is, but also it's so like, this is a positive, piece of social media that like, it can be a scary place, but it can also be a great place too. Right. So it's, really interesting. So
I think
you sharing all that.
Yeah. I think you've really taken it, TikTok especially, but I think you've turned it into a tool for community, connection, and creativity
Absolutely.
for yourself as a teacher, but also maybe for your students, right? Like showing them the positive ways you can
Yeah.
use it, right? Or
Right.
ways you can do it.
Absolutely.
And
That
connecting
was
with
one of my goals.
teachers. Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's so important. I think I always say, if my kid, any of my kids grow up to have a teacher like Lisa, I'll be happy because I know how much you care for your students, and I know how like current and relevant you keep yourself in some of these things, right? You're able to teach them. You're able to be like fun and creative, but also like ethical and responsible with some of these things and how to
Right.
use
And I
it to
think
their
too,
advantage.
what like
Yeah.
speaks to me is like, you're this cool teacher that has TikTok, because that would be a big deal. I mean,
Yeah.
I can picture like it is a cool thing, like that your teachers like went viral on TikTok. And like to go to your bio and see laugh with me and choose kind, like that, like you're such a role model, right? I mean, that's what we need to see more of on social media, these types of messages. And so I think that's really, really important for your students. And I think it's great.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
Good
Yeah,
for
that's
you.
definitely something that I hope to do. Like, this is how you can conduct yourself
That's right.
online.
Right.
And as far as
This
like
is what the
building
cool kids are doing. Okay.
Yeah.
It's
right?
cool to be kind.
Exactly. Kindness goes a long way, kids.
It sure does.
And as far as like relationships go, so pre-COVID, I got to see all the students in my school, and I got to know them all in different ways, and I had relationships with them and would chat to them. And then COVID happened, and you're stuck in this bubble.
Mhm.
And I felt like I didn't know so many students in the school.
Mm.
And now things are like opening up a little bit, and we're not in a bubble anymore. And I have so many students who will come and talk to me because I'm that TikTok teacher.
Yeah, that's
Love that.
amazing.
Yeah, they feel like they know me.
Yeah.
It's so cute. Like, it's just, and then they feel like we have a relationship.
I
And
was
just
just
think
gonna
that's
say.
so important.
Yes, Lisa.
Yeah,
They can come
It's
to you.
cute, but it's also could be life-saving. Like, not to be
Exactly.
dramatic, but it really
Yeah.
could be, right? Like, you're a trusted
Definitely.
source now for them.
Love that.
What do you think is different about TikTok compared to the other apps? Like, why is TikTok so different than Instagram or whatever has come before it, Vine, all the ones that we don't use anymore? But what makes TikTok different?
I think with TikTok, people can tell a story through video. And I feel like because it was the first app, well, I guess Vine was extremely short videos and TikTok was a little bit longer. I know they keep getting longer and longer and longer. I think you can post up to 3 minutes on TikTok now.
Okay.
But I feel like it's so popular because it's just, your For You page that is based on the algorithm, depending on your interests. And then you can quickly like consume so much content.
Right.
So it is addictive, but you can get like stories from watching these videos. And I feel like a lot of different creators like kind of invite you into their lives as well. Like, I know so many people who just, have their niche and they start it a certain way. And then once they get bigger, like, you learn more about them and they take you along for like all their different moments in life. So I just feel like in some ways it creates like more of a sense of there's like a community, a TikTok community there.
Yep. Yep.
And I think depending on, what what side of TikTok you are on, because I feel like it's also always so interesting. If you ever get in a room with a bunch of people and put your phones together and you go through your For You pages, it's extremely interesting to see what sides of TikTok people are on.
Oh, that is so interesting.
So different.
Yeah, it's like completely
really
different app.
Yes.
That's
It's really just based on like what they're consuming and their interests.
That's right.
But I also feel like a lot of like community for example, like now I'm part of the teacher community. I have like a group chat with 10 other teachers in Canada who I've never met, but we talk quite frequently. We Zoom together sometimes. I FaceTime some of them to like tell them important things. We talk about all the highs and lows of teaching and support each other. So I do feel like, and I'm maybe you can have that with other apps, but I just feel like the video aspect, when people can like talk to you as a viewer. I just feel like that is maybe why it's so much more popular.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I think it was timely too, right? Like TikTok kind of hit its peak of popularity or started there anyway. Around the pandemic, did it not? Like right before it, or
Yes.
I think that timing kind of served it well as well.
Yes. Because people were like, isolated in some way.
Craving
trying to
community.
seek a connection. So
Yeah, craving that, right?
yes.
I have two things before we wrap up, and I think they're funny stories that I want you to share if you remember or can tell them. One is, because you're a French immersion teacher, you spend most of your day speaking in French. Tell us, do you dream in French sometimes?
I absolutely do dream in French. Yes.
So cool.
I think that is so wild.
Yeah.
Does your husband speak French at all?
He does not speak French, but there are days that I come home from work and he asks me things and I speak in French. And then I'm like,
I'm just so
I have to
used to
turn
it.
off my French brain.
Wow. Yeah. I would find that so hard, I think. And then I always tell this story. I use it in my class every semester when I'm talking about language and creating community and perception and et cetera. But I recall a time, I think maybe in your 20s, I'm sure I've changed some of the aspects of this story, but I think the story goes something about you being on an elevator with two guys and they were speaking French thinking you couldn't. And you let them.
I remember this story.
I think you let them, Lisa, like you rode the elevator with them for a certain amount of time. And when you got off the elevator, you spoke back in French to be like, I know everything you're saying. Do you remember this? I'm positive it's you. I remember this so well from like our early 20s. I mean, that was a little bit of a hazy time in our life, but I remember it happening because I remember being like, oh my God, I wish I could speak French to have that exact moment in my life. Like, they didn't think you could speak French. They were talking about you in the elevator. And when you got off the elevator, you spoke back in French to them. Do you remember this?
I vaguely remember it, but I can't like think of any details. But you retelling this story, I can vaguely remember.
It's one of my all-time favorite stories of you and of anyone, and I tell everyone it, like as an example of like a funny language thing,
Yeah.
It's so funny. I just think it's so badass. Like I can just picture you doing it, like getting off the elevator and just saying a few words in French. Like, all I can say is like, how do you go to the bathroom? I don't even remember that anymore.
Try it. You can do it. You can do it.
Est-ce que je peux aller toilette?
Oh, very good.
This makes me think
bien.
when we were in Whistler a couple weeks ago, I was with a couple of my girlfriends, and Hillary, who I already mentioned, she's a French teacher. And I was ordering wine, and I was like, my friend and I ordered a bottle of, so I said Sauvignon Blanc or whatever it was. Like, I can't say it properly. And then she ordered a bottle of wine, and I was like, what the hell? Like, you say, I'm such a Cape Bretoner, like you sound so whatever. And she's a French teacher. So she's like, you just have to pronounce it Sauvignon.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, it's not Sav, it's Sauve. And I'm like, oh, that is so much more eloquent.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what else can you teach me? So now I can properly say Sauvignon Blanc, and it's just so much nicer and so much more eloquent. I think I need some more tips like that, but
I love that.
Yeah, Lisa always sounds like a little bit sexier than the rest of us. Like,
Oh, I'm fur. Yeah,
we also have to mention, like, so your TikTok, where can people find you, Lisa? Your TikTok is Rad Blonde Teacher, blonde with an E, correct?
That's correct. Yes. Blonde teacher.
Like, imagine your teacher was Rad Blonde Teacher. Like, how cool are you? And your last name's Radzikowski. I love that because you're Madame Rad, which means like you're so cool. You're so rad, so fitting for your personality. Yeah. So they can find you. We'll put that in the show notes so people can find it as well. Before we wrap up and jump to our morning meeting questions, though, let's give you the last floor. Anything you want to say that we didn't get to talk about TikTok and teaching, about teaching in general, about TikTok in general, biggest misconceptions? What teaching?
Yeah, I was thinking some of the biggest misconceptions because there are just a few things that are kind of like a pet peeve. I feel like teachers get a lot of hate.
Yeah.
And it's tough sometimes because I feel like we've all had bad teachers. And I know I've definitely had my fair share growing up. And I feel like that might be one of the reasons why I decided to become a teacher. And I really want to be a good teacher and I really want to help students. But I feel like sometimes there are some people out there who paint all teachers with the same brush because they had one bad experience or maybe a few bad experiences. But I just feel like in any profession, there are bad police officers, but there are incredible police officers. There are bad doctors. There are doctors who are amazing and save lives. Nurses, like any profession, there's bad and good. And I just feel like we get a lot of hate, like just all teachers are terrible. And I know it's not everyone, like as much as much as there's a lot of hate, there is still a lot of love. But I do also feel like being a teacher online, a lot of people trauma dump.
Oh, interesting.
Because they've had a bad experience. They like want to dump their trauma on me or feel like I need to hear this or maybe take some of the blame. It's very strange. But that's a big thing in the teacher community online, people trauma dumping on them.
Trauma dumping. That is so interesting.
Bad experiences. And like I did have one post that like got me in a little trouble. Like they contacted this one person out of 250,000 people who saw it, like contacted my principal about it.
Really?
Luckily, my principal was like, but what you said is true. Like he was like, I don't understand what the issue with it. Like, but I think this person had a bad experience and, perceive things in a certain way and just really did not agree with what I was saying. And
like what you were saying in general or what you were saying in response to them?
What I said in general.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was a hot topic. And I even like privated the video for a while because it was awful. People were fighting. It was one of those things that people debated about.
Right.
So that was really tough. And I think the other biggest misconception is teachers work 9 to 3.
Right.
And we definitely do not. Much more than that, if I have to say that. People like don't believe that. I don't know. I get to teach 9 to 3 and then I have to plan and prepare for the next day or week. The other misconception is the amount of time off that teachers get. We get a lot of hate. Like, yes, you might have a tough job, but you get your summers off and you get paid. But we only get paid the 195 days that we work. So I don't get, yes, my pay is spread out, but I don't get anything for the holidays. I'm not paid like for that time that I'm not working. And just to add on to that, most provinces, their school year is 185 days. In Nova Scotia, our school year is 195 because they've added 10 extra days onto our school year because of snow days.
Oh,
so when people
really?
are always saying like, oh, you know, those darn teachers get another snow day. They should be going to work anyway. We are one of the only provinces that have these extra days added on, like, you know, because of snow days. So we do take that into consideration. They are accounted for.
I didn't know that. When did they make that change?
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm
Crazy.
not really sure. Yeah. Before I became
okay. Yeah. It's not new. Like that's always kind of been the way. Yeah. Interesting.
To try and make up for like the time that students missed. Cause like
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
so many snow days. Like so many.
Yes. I think in Cape Breton gets a lot more than we do in Halifax. So I feel like they're pretty stingy up here.
Right.
But, you know, so there are days, there has been years that I get 2 snow days. So, you know,
you're working the extra,
I'm still working those extra days, which is fine, like whatever, but just that's like a misconception that.
Right.
And the fact that like we just get time off when I get a snow day, sure, maybe I get to like sleep in a little bit and do some things differently, but quite often I am catching up on my marking and my planning. Like lots of people are working during those days.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those are just like the misconceptions that I really wanted to highlight because I feel like it can be really frustrating, especially when people are like working their butt off and really trying. And I just feel like so many people can put the profession down.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I sometimes think too, like, does that come from a place of envy or jealousy because they didn't choose the profession that they get summers off? I don't know, but like, you know, everyone makes their choices and does what they do for all kinds of reasons. And of course, there's teachers who choose it maybe because they don't have to work in the summer. But
Right.
there's also teachers who choose it because they love teaching and genuinely want to help children like reach their fullest potential. And if you have children, you're sending them to these people for 13 years. Like you hope it's the latter.
like
you hope they're
they-
having the people who
Your teachers spend
chose
more
it,
time
you know?
with your kids than you do. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. You
Yeah.
just pray to
Yeah.
God that, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that's another one of my favorite things about teaching, like the bonds that I build with students that hopefully can last a lifetime. TikTok has connected me with students who are now in grade 11, who are my very
Wow.
first group of students.
wow,
And
that
some of
must
the
be
comments
wild.
that they left me saying just like, oh, I loved you so much as a teacher. Like, thank you so much. Like, we're so kind. And
Oh,
that they like those moments are like, they are why I teach, because hearing that I had an influence, or
Yeah.
I love the new system in Nova Scotia that we use because I can search any student's name in my email and their email address will pop up. And students can do that with me too. So I get emails quite often from my students who are now in middle school who thank me or reflect on things. And I get like just one every couple months, but I'm like,
That's so
they're
nice.
So
such
nice.
a motivation, right? To keep going.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
on those hard days.
I
And
save
nice to know
all
you're
of that
making that
stuff.
change.
Like
yeah.
I have a full binder for those hard days.
Oh,
Yeah.
This
that's
year
so
was
nice.
particularly hard. So like
Yeah.
I needed that reassurance. I needed
For
those
sure.
emails this year.
I think it's safe to say like it's been a strange and challenging year for everyone for various reasons. But I think like teaching and creating an environment where your students feel like safe and protected, but also they're learning and nurtured and blah, blah, blah. Like there's so many, it's so nuanced. And I think teachers have been feeling a lot of that, right? The brunt of that, of like a lot of unknowns and a lot of decisions being made for them and in response to and like changing conditions. And I think, I think we have to kind of give teachers the multiple pats on the back that they deserve in that area. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's tough when the decisions are made so often by people who haven't set foot in a classroom ever or in a decade or so.
Mhm.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah. Like what a skewed perception. Yeah. So true. I think that's like could be a whole nother podcast episode.
Mhm.
Mhm, absolutely.
Any other thoughts, Lisa, about TikTok or teaching? We'll put your TikTok account in the show notes as well as your Instagram, right? Same name at Rad Blonde Teacher.
Yes, I'm slowly trying to build my Instagram, so please
See if
follow
I'm
me.
following.
Yes. Go follow Lisa.
It's been a
regret
slow
it.
start. I really need to work on it and post more, but it's hard to do both and have time for both. And
And I think
Oh, yeah.
Instagram is harder than TikTok, right? To do
it
that.
is.
Like it's
I think so
set
as
up
well.
Yeah, to be
Mhm.
difficult. All right. We have a
Yes.
few questions that we ask all of our guests at the end of every episode. Our morning meeting questions. Just take it away.
So, would you rather tea or coffee?
Tea.
Tea. Me too.
You take it. Me too.
Love tea.
The good Cape Breton gal you are.
Yep.
You love
you
a
know
good cup
what
of tea. Yeah. Well, for wine, do you prefer white or red?
Oh goodness, that's tough. White.
Ooh.
Extra cold.
Yeah.
Extra cold.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a good
And then we always ask a random, what would you rather? So, would you rather live in the city or on the lake?
Ooh. It's a tough one for Lisa, I feel.
That is extremely difficult. Oh goodness. On the lake.
Okay.
Whoa.
Mhm. Mhm.
I like
What
it.
about you,
Oh.
Jess?
Since being in Vancouver, I have a different feel about a city.
Ooh, meaning what?
If I could live in Vancouver, you get everything. You get the lake, you get everything. You get the mountain views, you get this beautiful city views, you get the water, like everything you could ever want in Vancouver.
Right.
So there.
Just FYI, everything.
I
When
live
were
there.
you in Vancouver?
Yeah, just a couple of weeks ago.
It's incredible.
Oh, it's amazing.
Did you go to Stanley Park?
Yes.
Did you bike it
No.
or just walk around? Okay.
You don't know me well enough yet. You wouldn't have asked that.
Okay.
If
I thought it was breathtaking when I was there.
It's beautiful. Yeah. We did a lot of adventure seeking, lots of R&R, a little bit of a lot of food, some wine. It was really nice. It was a little
That's
bit of everything,
amazing.
so, yeah, it was lovely.
That's exactly
Yeah, I
what
would
should
totally
that be.
move there. What about you, Sarah?
I think I would pick the lake.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to
See,
live in
like-
Kitsilano. That's where I want to live.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be beautiful.
But anyway.
I have a lake 5-minute walk from my house. So I feel kind of spoiled
Oh.
because I'm 10-minute drive from downtown Halifax, but I'm so close to a lake. So I picture, I can
Yeah.
picture that. The lake.
I was
on the
also
lake.
thinking, Lisa, for you, it's like the city, like you live in a city, but then your summers very much are like by the ocean, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
thinking of like your English
Mhm.
life. So
Yeah.
that's a hard one. Lisa, you've
will-
traveled quite a bit. You've had lots of adventures in your life. Last question. What's been your favorite spot around the globe that you visited thus far?
I think my favorite place that I have been to was Prague, Czech Republic.
Mm.
I found Eastern Europe in general incredibly interesting, incredibly beautiful. The architecture, the history, and like my family came from
Yeah.
Poland, so I feel like I did go to Poland too, but for some reason I just felt like such a connection to Prague. It's a beautiful, beautiful city that is just like rich in culture. It was really cool.
Ah, that's so interesting. We hear lots of
Mhm.
good things about Prague. We've had
That's
lots
right.
of
That's
conversations.
right.
Yeah. That's
You
amazing.
have to go someday.
Yeah, it's on the bucket list. I mean, fingers
Awesome.
crossed we can all travel freely
Yeah.
again soon. God. Lisa, we are so happy to have you around the table. It was such a pleasure to chat with you, for you to teach me a little bit more about TikTok and the teaching community and teacher community on TikTok. Yeah, it was so nice to have you around the table. Any
We
final
appreciate your time.
Yes. Any final thoughts for our listeners before we go?
Just be yourself, put yourself out there, because you honestly never know what can happen. Don't be afraid to post something and be judged for it. Stay true to yourself in a kind way. Make sure
That's
whatever
right.
you're putting out there is positive and kind, and try to better yourself and better the world in that way.
Yeah,
That
love
is such great advice. One last question. I'm lying. I know Jess is going to kill me, but I was going to ask you this prior, but it just didn't come up and I didn't want to extend it if I didn't have to in that way. But let's just a little bit, like if you have a little snippet to say about that, because I do think that was a little bit of a challenge when you started with TikTok. Like Lisa, I think as one of your close friends, you've had TikTok, you were having this TikTok following and I didn't really know about it, right? Like you were kind of keeping those lives separate because it's a little bit more vulnerable, would you say, for the people who know you really well to see you putting yourself out there in a different way. I mean, I think Jess and I have felt that with this podcast at different times, right? Like to find that creative outlet and still have your people who know you. People who don't know you, it's a little different, but people who do know you, like, was that a little bit of a challenge for you?
Absolutely. I still sometimes will see people that I know in real life or who I went to high school with, and I'm like, oh, like they're following me now. It kind of makes me feel, as much as I say, put yourself out there and be yourself, like, there is that little bit of anxiety and worry about people in real life.
Yeah.
What is she doing? Why is
vulnerability?
She doing that? It is it's being vulnerable. And I still, as much as I am getting more comfortable with it now, I will talk about it. I used to be very much in denial. People would ask me if I had it, or students would approach me and I would say, TikTok? I don't really know. I don't really know what TikTok is. Like I would just play dumb, or, oh, there must be someone out in the world who looks like me. I really don't know what you're talking about. Because I was like slightly embarrassed. It's slightly cringe, like I am making a fool out of myself to make people laugh sometimes. So there is that aspect of it as well, but I am overcoming it slowly. And I feel like I need that reminder to just keep putting myself out there and going with the flow, because you don't know what can happen. And I'm hoping more great things will come of this as well.
And the people who love and support you, right? Like no matter what you're doing. And if there's anyone in your life who's like kind of judging you or whatever about that, then it's like, well, let's reevaluate this then, like I think people who are in your corner will be in your corner no matter what you're doing. Jess and I talk about that all the time. When Jess gets someone like around a boardroom table or from her work life who's like, oh my God, the podcast was great. She's immediately like,
I want to cry.
Listen? Like we forget that people in our lives listen, right? So it is that like moment of like, oh God, what did I say? Or what am I doing? And that vulnerability. But I think we all take ourselves too seriously sometimes, right? Like
I love that. Absolutely.
Let's be creative.
Just try and forget about
it. What,
like
Jess?
I just try and forget about it. Like I say what I say, we put it out there, and it's out in the universe. I try not to think about it because people say stuff about it. I mean, that like obviously like it takes all kinds, and people don't agree with what I say or what you say or like, but you gotta let that shit go. Or you'd be miserable. It's out there.
Have either of you had any, trolls or negative feedback or anyone?
Not to our faces. No.
Not to our faces. No.
Okay.
I don't know of any. Like I haven't heard.
But we would be silly if we were to think that people aren't saying negative things. I mean, that's the reality of it. But
yeah,
maybe I think too, and that's true. I don't disagree with that. But I also think the amount of messages we did get of people saying like, "Thank you for saying this," or "Thank you about being honest about this," or "Thank you about having this real conversation," like. One of those, even if we only had one this whole time, it would be worth it to me. But I would say we have at least one of those every episode. So it's like, yeah, this is why we said we wanted to do this, right? Just to normalize conversations. And you just want to normalize the teaching profession and the challenges that you're having and finding that community and creating and being creative and not limiting ourselves based on other people's expectations of us. Like we just have to stop doing that, right? We have to be able to do what we want and live the life we want in a kind way if we're not hurting anyone,
right?
Without the fear of other people's expectations and judgments. Like as my mom would say, their opinion of you is none of your business. So why would we let that guide our decisions for our life, right? So I'm proud of you for doing that. And I think there's so much good that is coming from it. So I think that needs to be your continued like motivator moving forward.
We hope we made your Sunday scaries a little less scary tonight.
You absolutely did. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate how comfortable you both made me feel. This was a great conversation.
Yay.
You're so sweet. You're welcome back anytime. Thanks for having your Sunday evening with us. It was a pleasure.
Catch you on TikTok.
You're keeping us cool. You're keeping me hip and relevant. So I love it.
I love it.
We'll see you again, Lisa. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
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 If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast and give us a review. You can find us on social media at The Morning Meeting Podcast and connect with us through email at themorningmeetingpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for sitting around our table. Sarah and Jess.